Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining Whistle Mountain. So this is Whistle Mountain set up as a two-player game. There's a lot going on, or at least it seems like there's a lot going on, but the play is relatively straightforward. At the very beginning of the game, there are 3 of these tiles out. The last player will choose one and place it in that space, then the next player until the first player chooses the last one, and then one goes back in the box. There are many of those tiles with many different things that can happen, and it basically is a bonus for just that player for the entire game. There is a list of what the things do in the back of the rule book, so you can look them all up. This one, the Riveter, means that whenever he gains one of these scaffold pieces, at least one of those scaffold pieces through the turn, he will gain an extra one at the end of the turn. This one, the lead engineer, means whenever he builds either the rectangle or the large square thing onto the board, he will get one of these tokens. I'll talk a bit more about them when I get up to them. So let's get to the actual game now. What will happen is you have 2 choices on your turn. You will either place one of your 3 markers. So this one takes up 1 square, that one takes up 2, this one takes up 3. And they call that the collect stage. So when you place it, you will get all of the stuff that is orthogonally adjacent. So for example, he might choose to throw that one in there. He will gain 2 coal and 1 iron for doing that. And that just goes onto your board. Notice there are only 4 of each pictured, which means that you can't have more than 4 at the end of your turn. So if you have a line which has a whole bunch of something, there's no point in getting any more of that. And that is the entirety of one turn. A player may choose to go there, which is next to iron, and it also is next to a water. Okay, that's the basics of the board. The other element of the main board, or playing into that space, I will get to in a moment. The other spot that you could choose to send one of your ships, and it doesn't really matter which size ship you send to the spots, is any of these little spots around the board that have indents on them. And they all do something slightly different. So I'll start up the top of the left-hand board. If this player were to throw an airship up there, what that's saying is he's going to use 2 coal to purchase one of those 3 factory. So he might, for example, spend the 2 coal to purchase this. That doesn't go straight on the board. That comes down onto his own board to be placed at a later stage. He'll just hang on to it for the moment. That one he's taken then gets replaced. There's another spot up there which can be used, but it's going to cost 3 coal to do exactly the same thing. Moving my way down, if you come onto this one, you're spending 3 iron, which are these guys, to take one of those 3 rectangular factories. And down at the bottom, you're spending 3 iron and 2 coal to take one of these larger factories. So as a general rule, the small ones at the top there give you double resource or some points. The ones in the middle, so the rectangle ones, allow you to do something. And the ones at the bottom are generally a thing to do with these meeples or other bonus stuff. So the bigger the factory that goes in, the more effect it can have on the game. I'll come back a little bit more to them at a later stage. Moving along the board, up the top, if you take that space, you can get 1 card, or you can spend a resource. So that star means any of the resources to get 2 cards, or you can spend 2 resources to get 3 cards. Those resources do not have to be the same. So if he went up there and got 1 card, he would hold this in his hand until he could play it, and that can be played at any time. What this one allows him to do is pick up 3 cards and keep one of them, so he'll discard the other 2. Moving around, if you go here, you can get one of these 3 extra bonus elements, or they refer to them as upgrades. The cost is in the top space, so this one would cost 3 water to get. This one would cost 3 of the iron. There's a 7 there, which means this is worth 7 points at the end of the game. You don't get those points straight away. That's end game points. But this one means that whenever you build a scaffolding piece, you would get 1 point. These are the scaffolding pieces, or these ones here. Okay, coming down, these 3 spots enable you to get more scaffolding. So by going here, you can get 1 piece of scaffold. By going here and spending a whistle, which is this resource, whistles, by the way, count as a wild resource as well. So if you need to have 2 coal and you've only got 1, you can spend a coal and a whistle and have the same effect. But spending a whistle at this area allows you to pick up 2. Spending 2 whistles allows you to pick up 3 of those. And when you pick them up, they just come onto your board. You don't put them straight onto the play area to start with. And this area allows you to rescue a worker who has fallen in the water. We start the game with 2 workers in the water each. Be aware that at the end of the game, if these guys are still there, it's negative 5 points per worker you still have down in that water. And that's, in essence, all of the collect spaces. The other option you have is the forge option. And what forge does, there's a few things, is number 1, you pull back all of your elements that are out there. So at the moment, if he decides to do forge, he would pull back his balloon and his airship and pull them back so they're ready to put out again. Notice that by me pulling them back, they've now released spots for other players to be able to use. The next thing you do is you build. You can build one of these for free. If you're able to build one of these, you can build that as well. So that would be 2 things I'm building. It would cost me 1 water for the second building. I could do a 3rd building for the second water if I had and if I wished. So he might, for example, choose to place that there. So that's 1 building. When you build scaffold, you will get a point per side that is touching. So this piece going in, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So him building that piece is worth 5 points to him, and he takes that straight away. He can then build this wherever he likes. So he might decide to put that in just there. If that machine was placed with part of it above this line, then the canyon would flood, which means we would bring one of these up into this spot. If you do that, any markers that are in that spot just go back to their owners. Any meeples that are still over here, like these ones, would go down into the drink to have to be rescued at a later stage. The other thing that you can also do when you're forging is you can promote workers. Now, I could do this before I did this piece of building. So I could build that, and you'll see why in a second. I could build that, so that's one of them. Pay the water for the other one, so I'll just kind of keep that there. That's going to be built. But I can spend 1 gold to promote one of my workers. And what he might do is place that guy there, so that costs the gold. Now, when I build this building, so it costs the water, that worker moves across to the right-hand side. If there is one of these markers in the spot that that worker's just moved to, you gain that. This is bonuses. You can use one of these each turn at any point during the turn. This one would allow me to get an extra card, and then that would be discarded once I've actually used that. If a player placed their marker there, they would get the 2 iron from the factory. They would also get the coal and the 3rd iron. If they placed a marker there, they'd get 2 iron from the factory, 2 coal from the scaffolding. If he placed it there, he would get the 2 iron from that particular factory. So just be aware of that placement, and also notice that if I'm here and there happen to be other factories, so if scaffolding had been built up and other factories had been built around this one, he would get the stuff on this factory that he's on, that piece of coal, plus he'd be able to make those 2 factories work if he had the appropriate resource to trade in for the various things. But these ones haven't been built at the moment, and they can't be built. They need to be actually on top of scaffolding to be placed before that even happens. And noticing these and the cards can be played anytime. You can use 1 of each on each turn. You can't play 4 or 5 cards. You can only play 1 card and 1 token on each of your turns, but they are able to be played on your turn at any point, at any time. There's no order in which this stuff has to happen. Once you finish turn, it's obviously the next person's turn, and then you will come to the end of the game. When does the game finish? I am glad you asked. The game finishes when there are no more workers in the barracks. So if this got moved up, that worker would get washed away. So you're either moving them out onto the scaffolding. When you do move them to the scaffolding, it must be to an empty spot. By the way, you can't move that to there because that would be covering up a collar. He would have to go there on an empty spot. The other thing to remember is that he would have got 3 points when he placed that particular piece of building. So 3 points. Once you get to the end of the game, which is when there's no more meeples over in that area, the active player will finish their turn. When that happens, then each other player will get 1 turn, and that is the end of the game. Then you're looking for points. So the points you're getting are each meeple times the little point next to what level they're standing on. The higher up this you are, the more points each meeple is worth. You're losing 5 points per meeple in the pool still. You're gaining the points for any upgrades that you have managed to add in. Notice where they go, by the way. So this one would get another 7 points. And then each thing that you have in storage, which is the stuff that hasn't yet been put out, will get you a point. It's 1 point for each of the actual buildings, or each machine, should I say. 1 point for each reward that hasn't been used. 1 point for every 2 scaffolding that you have down there. 1 point for every 2 cards. And 1 point for every 4 resources. It doesn't have to be one of each. It could be this is 4 resources as it currently sits. Whoever has most victory points is the winner. And that, my friends, is the game. If you would like to go ahead and watch my gameplay to get a feel for how the game actually plays, please go ahead and watch that gameplay. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.